Welcome to that Fabric Guide. Today I'm going to show you how you can use Claude Code for developing Microsoft Fabric solutions. Because what if you could give an AI agent access to the source code of your entire Microsoft Fabric solution? Not just a single Python file, but your Fabric notebooks, semantic models, pipelines, reports, and technical documentation. In this video you will learn how to use Claude Code as an AI development agent for Microsoft Fabric. We'll connect Claude Code to Visual Studio Code, configure its model, reasoning effort and permissions, and we will clone a Fabric repository from Azure DevOps, and then let Claude make actual changes to our Fabric solution. Finally, we will review those changes, push them back to Azure DevOps, and then synchronize the updated solution into Microsoft Fabric. By the end of this video, you will have a complete workflow from an AI coding agent on your local machine to working Fabric items in the cloud. Now, before we start, there is one important concept to understand. Claude Code is not editing the live objects in your Microsoft Fabric workspaces directly. It will work on the files on your local machine through a Git repository. We will sync them, but it is important to understand that we are editing files local on our machines, on our computers or laptops, not directly in your Fabric workspaces. This is a benefit, not a bug. It will give us proper source control, a visible diff, and the availability to review anything the AI changed before it reaches Fabric. Now let's dive into my laptop to get started. So what is Claude Code? You have probably heard about Claude, OpenAI, Gemini, and these are all large language models and chatbots or applications that we can work with to chat to an AI interface. Now Claude Code is the coding agent from Anthropic. It works with Claude, Sonnet and Opus and Haiku, and it will allow us to write code and to develop software projects, which Microsoft Fabric is a software project, so we can use it to code there as well. And now, unlike the traditional chat window that you use in Claude or ChatGPT, Claude Code can inspect your entire repository, search through your files, edit files, multiple files even. It can run terminal commands, and it can keep working through a task. If you give it a larger task, it will create a checklist for itself basically to start working on that extended task. We are working with a Visual Studio Code extension today, and it gives us a graphical interface, inline diffs. We can see the files that are being changed by Claude. So if you are not a developer, if you are not comfortable with using the command line interface or CLI, this will be a very nice in-between for Claude chat application and Visual Studio Code for your code. You can give Claude quite broad instructions, such as analyze this Fabric solution, add logging to all notebooks, update the documentation, and then verify the changes. Claude will then start working through that. It will find all of your notebooks, it will do the changes in your notebooks, and so on. Claude can investigate your repository. It can even see the Git changes and the commits that have been happened on the branch. So it will automatically understand all of the context and all of the history in your code base. Now, as you can see here on the screen, Claude has some documentation on how you can use Claude in VS Code, and today we're going to work with that. So first of all, we need to install Claude Code in Visual Studio Code. But before we do that, we hop over to Microsoft Fabric, and we are going to put our Fabric environment into a Git repository using Azure DevOps, and then we're going to clone that Git repository into Visual Studio Code on our local laptop in order to actually work with this. So let's start there. I'll zoom in a little bit for you guys to make things more readable. Oops, that's a bit too much. And here we are looking at a workspace that I dubbed internal data warehouse or internal DWH. And this is a very, very small workspace, right? So we are not really doing that much with this. I am starting to work on Azure cost extractions a little bit. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to programmatically through the API read the costs that we have with Azure in order to build a report on top of that, right? And so we are going to use this workspace as a demo for Claude Code in Visual Studio Code and Microsoft Fabric. However, this will not be an end-to-end solution where we will build out the entire data platform and the reporting and so on. We will touch all of those things, but the solution itself will be very lightweight, because I want to show a lot of things without actually building the entire platform, which can take days, of course. So what we see here in our workspace, we have a couple of folders. Then we have a lakehouse called internal DWH. There is a KDF environment. This contains our Spark configurations, a custom Python library, and so on. we have a lot of notebooks on the Azure cost extraction. There we are. We have a maintenance notebook, a sandbox notebook, and a few other things for configuration. Then there are pipelines. We are scheduling the Azure cost extraction both daily and monthly with different parameters, and these are just starting the same ACE pipeline, but from a daily or monthly perspective. And now I do understand that probably 1 or 2 days before I recorded this video, a new feature was released in which we can actually schedule pipelines with parameters, and when I built this we couldn't do that, so that's the reason that we have these scheduling pipelines. It's a very lightweight semantic model. There's only one table, there's no measures, there's just that one table. And then there is a report called Azure Costs, and that report is connected to our semantic model, but otherwise it's empty. There is no visuals, nothing on the pages. Okay, in order to actually connect this to Azure DevOps, to my Git repository, I went to workspace settings, and I've already done this. Then to Git integration, and then I created a connection to our Kimura Netherlands project, and then Kimura internal data warehouse, where I connected to my repository. I've said put all the files and all the folders that you find in this workspace in a Git folder called /fabric. So it's not in the root of Git, it will be in /fabric. That leaves me with the option to do documentation in /docs and maybe some other stuff in the repository as well. And then I told it to work with the main branch. Now, in practice, you might want to work with feature branches if you start developing. For now, working directly on the main branch for this demo is enough. And then the result of connecting to our repository is the Fabric repo that we have right here. So we are in Azure DevOps. We are in the project called Kimura with a Kimura internal DWH repository. And here we have all the objects that we also have in our workspace. So what we will do now is we will go to clone, and we will assume that we already have Microsoft Visual Studio Code installed and that we have Git installed. So if you have not installed those, install Visual Studio Code and install Git for either Windows or macOS, and then come back to this video. All right, are you back? Good. Let's go to our repository and here click clone. Now we have our repository in here, and we can choose an IDE, and let's choose Visual Studio Code. That's the IDE that we're going to work with today. We allow Chrome in this case to open Visual Studio Code. It opens on a different screen, so let me drag it in. Here we are. And let's put our repository in my repos folder and select that as our repo destination. And then we need to put in a password. In order to create a password, what we will do is we will click on Generate Git Credentials, and it will create a password for us. Now we can copy this and paste it in here and then hit enter. And then I will say open the repository. So now, and let me zoom in again for you guys. Now we have opened that Kimura internal data warehouse repository. This is now a folder on my local machine. We have a readme.md file, which contains some of the getting started documentation. And we have a folder called Fabric, which contains a lot of our Fabric stuff, such as the lakehouse, the notebooks, pipelines, reports, semantic models, and so on. And now the reports are in PBIR format, semantic models are in PBIP and Tyndall formats. So this is all really cool and really prepared for use in version control. And we did not do anything. This is done by Fabric and Power BI for us. All right, but now we want to install Claude Code because we need to have an extension available if we do not want to use the command line interface. So let's install the Claude extension. We go to extensions here and we search for Claude Code. There it is, and we will pick the first one. Make sure you pick the one by Anthropic and not some of the others. They might look the same, they are not the same. Search for the name Claude Code for VS Code by Anthropic and then hit install. Okay, there we are. This is now installed, and because it's zoomed in, Claude is now not showing up, but we can go here to Claude Code. It is not prompting me to log in, probably because I already logged in previously. I deinstalled the extension in order to actually show you how to install. If it's prompting you to log in, please do so. You do need a Cloud Pro account or higher in order to use Claude Code in Visual Studio Code. But it's, I think, $20 and it's more than worth it. It's way more than $20 in value if you ask me. All right. So let's look at the Claude Code interface. When we go to Claude, we can start creating a new session here. I usually do not do that. I almost never do that. So we go to our Explorer and we start looking for files. Maybe start looking for a notebook and then let's call the bronze worker and we open the notebook content.py. And now what we see here is this nice Claude icon on the top right side. We can click that and a sidebar with Claude Code will open. As you can see, and this is a bit smooshed together on my small screen here with three windows open side by side. But here we now have a chat interface to Claude Code, and Claude Code has access to the files in our repository. We can do a lot of things. We can start typing a prompt here, hitting enter, and Claude will start working on our repository. You can ask it to explain stuff to you. You can also ask it to change stuff directly in your repository, and you can ask it to make a plan. And then it will present you with the plan, and then you can change the plan or ask it to execute the plan. So this is quite cool. Now, interface-wise, we have a few different things. Of course, we have the chat window here where we can start typing. That's something we're not going to do right now. We can hit the plus to upload files from our computer or to browse the web. We can hit the slash command here in order to change things on the settings of Claude Code. The things that I change the most are the model, the effort, and the thinking mode. I usually leave thinking mode on. I'd like my developers to think about the work to do. The same thing goes for my AI developers. But the model and effort, they are important. So if we click on model, we can see here that we can select between three different models, being Haiku, which is the cheapest and most lightweight model, Sonnet, which is the middle one, and Opus, which is the most heavy and capable model that we have. Fable is disabled for use, at least here in the EU it's disabled, and maybe it will never be enabled again, I don't know. I don't use it anyway. So 9 out of 10 times I will use Sonnet and not Opus. Now, why would you be switching between models? If you have a very lightweight task, such as explain to me this query, which is just a query with maybe a few dozen lines, you do not need a very senior developer to explain that to you. You don't need a very senior or very heavyweight capable model to explain it to you. Maybe Haiku can explain to you what the query does. And Haiku is cheap, so you will not burn through your Claude usage allowance that fast when you're using lighter models. Okay, so here you can use the different models. Let's keep it at Sonnet for now. And then when we go back to the slash command, we can put the effort slider from low to medium to high and to max. Usually I leave it at high, that's good enough for me. And then again, the lower you go, the less capable the model becomes, the higher you go, the more effort will be put into the work you give it. If we go to Opus, and then back to the slash command, you can see that we have more effort options here. We have low, medium, high, and then we have extra high, max, and then ultra code, extra high plus workflows. Amazing. You will burn through your allowance really quickly if you start using Opus on the very high effort settings. So then again, usually I go to Sonnet for most of the work that I do, and I put the effort either on medium or high. It depends a little bit on what I'm trying to do. And sometimes I will switch to a higher mode or a higher model if I want to, for example, create a plan to overhaul an entire installation of Fabric. Now here we can see the file that we have currently open. By default, Claude is looking at this file for its context. However, if you start typing here, it can refer to other files as well. Now let's close that, and then here again you can still say, okay, look at the file or do not look at the file. It doesn't really matter. Then here we can go to the permission modes. There are a few different permission modes, and bypass permissions, also known as the YOLO mode, is the one that I will use the most, to be fair. I mean, usually Claude is asking me, can I open this file? Can I do this operation on a certain file? And I always have to say yes, 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 yes. I got tired of it, so I enabled YOLO mode. I will show you later how you can do that. But the three modes that you have by default are plan mode, which is where Claude will not change any code, but you will give it a task. It will start creating a plan. So it will analyze your code base. It will then look at the task you gave it, and it will start building up a plan. It will say, this is the design, the architecture, this is the step-by-step instructions that I'm going to follow. Do you agree? And then you can say, no, you need to change the plan. It will give you a new plan, or you can say yes, and then it can start executing the plan. Now we also have ask before edits. This is the edit mode, where before it will start writing code or changing code, it will ask you if it's okay if it starts writing code. And then we have edit automatically. And then when you have codes selected or text selected in a file, and you ask Claude to change something, it will just immediately change that. Then auto mode is something I never use. To be fair, it is choosing for us what we can do with the models. And then we have bypass permissions, and you need to have a setting enabled in Visual Studio Code in order to see this. And bypass permissions will be basically the edit automatically mode, but without any confirmations. Now you have to be very careful. So we hit Command comma to go to the settings. We search for Claude, and then we have the allow dangerously skip permissions setting. This is dangerous. And it's only recommended to use in sandboxes without internet access, because using this, Claude can do anything on your computer. I don't really care. I want it to change code. I do not want it to ask me, can I read this file? Can I write to that file? I don't care. Yes, you can do it. So I hit allow bypass permissions mode, but do so at your own risk. I'm not liable. Anthropic is not liable. You are responsible for what you do with the setting. That's basically the interface for Claude Code. If we want to start asking the AI questions and having the AI start writing code for us in notebooks, in pipelines, semantic models, Power BI reports, and so on, it has to have some context. You are probably aware that if you have ChatGPT or Claude and you start giving it a prompt, write me a poem, it will write you a very generic poem. If you give it a lot of context about the types of poems you like, the topics you want to write about, and then ask it to write you a poem, it will write you a very specific poem that is specific to you. So we need to give Claude some understanding of what we can actually, of what we are actually trying to achieve. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to create a CLAUDE.md file in the root of our repository. So we right click here in an empty piece in our Explorer, we say new file, and we call it CLAUDE.md. Now we can just close this for now, and we can put in some instructions in here. This is an MD file, so you can put in headers, subheaders, text, links, and so on, everything to give Claude some understanding of the project that we are going to work with. Funny thing is, you can ask Claude to write you a CLAUDE.md file based on the contents of your model. So let's try and do that. Let's verify we are in a not too heavy model. That's fine. Analyze my repository, specifically the notebooks in the Fabric folder, and then write the CLAUDE.md file to give project context. We're in edit automatic mode, so it will now start working on the files. It will be reading the files, and it will probably ask me to confirm some things if it's running into permission errors. It's reading the notebooks that we have here. It's reading pipelines. We will change the mode to bypass permissions in the next example. Okay, it's now writing the CLAUDE.md file. It has a complete picture of what it needs to do, and it's now going to write. Now, mind you, this has taken some time. I could have maybe written the MD file myself, but it's a very good example of what we can use Claude Code for. So I'm going to let the AI write the code for me. All right, here we are. So Claude wrote quite an elaborate MD file, with 123 lines. And this is quite cool. This is quite impressive. And it's put something on Gitignore, Dutch data consultancy. It ingests cost management for managed clients, exposes it via PBIR report. There's stuff in the platform. There's a repository layout, there's a KDF library with some purpose and things that it's going to do. We're describing the primary workload, the Azure cost extractions, a list of clients, and all kinds of interesting stuff that's happening here. This is all looking quite cool. So let's accept this as a change, and now we can see that there's a file here that has been changed. Well, we still have not used any of our Git repo stuff right now in Visual Studio Code. So now that we've made a change, we can actually push that change to GitHub, and we have a settings change and a Claude.md change. I probably have to include my .vs code folder in gitignore. So let's do that. Let's create a gitignore file in here, .gitignore, and put .vs code in here. And yes, now the change in VS Code is gone. I don't want to have all these changes in my repository, especially because these changes here to the settings.json file in VS Code are local to my machine, to my setup. So if I'm starting to work with other people, with colleagues, they might have their own settings, and then if you start pushing those into Git, you get conflicts. So we have now made two changes. We added gitignore and we added Claude.md, and let's put those into Git. And then again, we're just pushing into main. This is not something you'd want to do in production. For now, for the demo, this is fine. Initialization of project with gitignore. We do a commit and push. And that's it for now. This is good enough. Okay, let's start working on some Fabric stuff, because that's what we're here for, right? For now, I do not really want to start working on notebooks, but just for demo purposes, let's look at one of the notebooks. Let's say we look at our cost extraction silver worker. There's some code in here. This is all fine. Let's ask it to change something in here and to add a markdown cell or something, just so that we can show that we are actually changing stuff in a notebook. So again, I will open Claude Code, and now I need to either open a file and then I can open Claude Code from here and start asking it to do things, or I can go to View and then I have to open Chat. And then in Chat, I can choose Claude Code. If you have Chat here, I think it will use GitHub Copilot. Instead, we will want to use Claude Code in here. Let's put it in YOLO mode by clicking Bypass Permissions and start asking it to put in a funny comment in one of the notebooks. All right, I asked it to, in the notebook for a silver worker, I deliberately did not put the exact name there. I let it figure it out itself. Add a markdown cell at the top containing a funny haiku about Microsoft Fabric. Be as sarcastic as you can. Don't ask for permissions, just execute. So there we are. The haiku is now in the first cell of the silver worker notebook. And it reads, clouds run our code now. Fabric spins up for 5 minutes to print hello world. That's indeed a quite sarcastic thing to put there. All right, so we've changed the notebook. We can see here on the in the yellow text, indeed, we have changed something that is already existing. So it will be green when you add new stuff. We just saw that. It will be yellow when we change existing stuff. Let's do another demo, and let's do a demo on the semantic model. Now, okay, I told it to analyze the semantic model and tell me which costs columns there are, because I want an explicit measure index that sums the cost column. All right, there it is. It did quite a lot there. It has read things, and there are cost columns here, And in the end, it shows one measure. Total cost is the sum of the cost in billing currency. And that's it. All right, that sounds good. We just added a measure like this without writing any DAX, just by vibing it. And the last prompt I've now put in is, okay, look at the Power BI report and add a matrix visual with these measures. And on the rows, put the product names columns, whatever the name is, I don't know. Let it figure out the product name column itself. Put a slicer with the Azure subscription ID, and I ask you to put no names for subscriptions, because this is a demo video with live data and I want to keep the video private for the sake of my customers. So it's now going through reading the semantic model, understanding what type of data is in there, and it will then probably be changing the Power BI report, putting a slicer and a measure in there from nothing. There's nothing yet. All right, it is done. It's changed the Power BI report, and let's see, it has added a slicer, a matrix, and it warns us there's a caveat. It is strict, it validates on import if you hit a schema rejection on sync. Most likely culprit is the visual name fields. We need proper GUIDs, and Claude used hex strings that match the length but not the hyphenated UUID format. Let's try and fix that before we start putting it in, because otherwise it will fail right away. All right, it has done the changes. Now, when we are doing changes like these, we need to have some control, right? So we need to find a way in order to actually figure out what Claude has been doing. And the good thing about that here is that we actually did not change anything in Fabric yet. We did not even change anything in Azure DevOps yet. We just changed files on our local hard drives, which is perfectly fine. We can go to the source control tab here, and we see that there are 3 pending changes. The first change that we have is our notebook. Then there is a page.json, which contains the visuals for Power BI, and there is a timdol file or .tmdl file, which is actually the description of a table within the tabular model, within the semantic model actually. So we can close Claude Code. We can click here, and we can actually see the differences that have been made by the AI. Here we can see that a markdown cell was added containing our Haiku. For the TMDL file, we can see that a measure has been added. That looks good. And for page.json, we can see that visuals have been added in here. So the page settings have stayed the same, and here's all kinds of information on the page itself. Now, this is the least documented part of Fabric and Power BI, this PBIR format. I really am skeptical about whether this worked or not, but let's see. First of all, we need to put a commit message in here, because we want to see in our Git history what we've been trying to do. And we will just say demo for a YouTube video, because for now this is fine. Usually I do not put the changes in there, but I put the intended changes in there, so that somebody that reads it understands what my intentions were and then can validate whether that was actually correctly done or not. We hit commit and push in order to immediately push my changes to the remote branch that is in Azure DevOps. And we have done that. We can see that the commit has been done here. Now let's go back to our browser. Let's go to Azure DevOps in here and hit refresh. And we will find that a few of the files have been changed just now. So in notebooks, we will find the notebook contents.py that have just been changed. Here is our little Haiku. Where is it? Here it is. This is our markdown file. Now, the same thing happens, of course, in the other files. So where is it? It is here, reports, Azure Cost Reports, and then under definition pages, then on the first page, we have added some stuff, and we can see that the visual definitions are in here. Good. It's still not in Fabric. If we go here, we can hit refresh anything we want. We can look at the Azure Cost Extraction Silver Worker, and no Haiku is in here. So let's close that and go to the source control tab. It shows that we have 3 differences, and those are the 3 files we just changed using Claude. We hit update all, and now we just hope that we do not get any errors, especially on the validation of our Power BI report. I know the other two will work. I mean, it's just a DAX measure and a markdown file, but as you can see here, the Azure costs have not been created properly. And it also tells us that the report workload failed to import. The property visuals has not been defined, and the schema does not allow additional properties in the path visuals on line 8, position 12. All right. Let's fix that later, but for now, let's check whether we have our Haiku in the silver worker, and we do. We see now that we have our nice little poem in here, and clouds run our code now. Fabric spins up for 5 minutes to print hello world. I don't even know if this is a proper Haiku or not. I have really no idea, but I think it's funny that Claude would create something like this. Then head over to the semantic model. Let's open it, go in edit mode, go to model, go to measures, and then find our total cost. Yes, so actually we do have our total cost in here. That's all perfectly fine. That's good, that's good. Okay, now in source control, let's see what's going on here. Yeah, it's broken. I mean, the Power BI report was not edited properly. I will not be fixing that right now because we will go into a debugging mode in order to actually have Claude try and fix the PBIR format, which is something I'm not confident it will actually work. I think if we put a lot of context in there, which is probably an existing report with the entire PBIR definitions in there, this would be working, but for now, let's just keep it as is. This is directly some of the problems that we will run into when you start coding using Claude Code, because yes, AI is very capable of programming, but yes, it's also very capable of making mistakes. Now, while we do see the changes that are being made in our files and in our code, we cannot always know whether those changes are correct. If it starts to change a piece of Python code or a SQL query or even DAX measures in a semantic model, I will probably understand that this is working or not working and why. But as soon as it starts changing this very complicated nested structure of a PBIR report visuals, I have no idea to say this is correct or not correct. So this is a bit of a difficult situation. Now, if I would start vibe coding Power BI reports, and that might be a very good next video, I would probably give it a couple of Power BI reports in context so that it understands the PBIR format a little bit better. And I would probably also try and look for documentation on Microsoft Learn in order to understand what properties are there in PBIR, what the order of those properties is, what the rules are that we need to adhere to. But other than that, I am more and more amazed with what Claude Code can do for Microsoft Fabric. I've created another video that will show you how you can use Claude in Visual Studio Code to do mass edits. If you need to change a couple of things on many notebooks, for example, that would be a lot of work to do manually. Claude will do that very, very quickly and without breaking a sweat. So that is nice. Start giving it some tasks that it can run on its own. And be aware that it can make mistakes, but then again, so can we. So there is no piece of code in the world without bugs, I think. And this is just one of those scenarios where you have to be very aware of the code that you start pushing. I hope you like this. It was for my channel, it was quite a long video, but I got a lot of questions on how I would use Claude Code or AI for data engineering. And I really hoped you liked it. And if you did like it, give me a thumbs up on the video, hit subscribe to the channel. And subscribing to my channel is the only thing I ask from you. It's your form of payment to me for making these videos every week for free. And I will see you next week. Ciao, ciao.